Hi guys, thank you very much for joining me. Paulina here, talking to you about this incredible unraveling process that we have in the sky at the moment, leading up to the incredible, impeccable full moon in Scorpio on the 30th of April. Well, we also have an incredible opportunity in the sky. The stellium in Capricorn is going retrograde. It is retrograde now pretty much. We have both Saturn and Pluto in retrograde, which kind of sets the whole bunch. Ceres and Mars retrograde too. Energetically, everything is drawn back, drawn out and drawn backwards, as well as Jupiter, of course, still retrograde in Scorpio. So we have a little bit of a strong mind. We have a new type of recognition, and we are here now in the process of seeing truth and also noticing the process for all it is, noticing how things come about, noting what worked and what is not working, what was and what could have been as well. So this is a very, very difficult cavernous time for some people if you are somebody prone to regret. If you do not like who you are and you do not like what you see and you do not like who you've been, it is a very, very difficult time now to surrender and understand that perhaps for some of us change is no longer there. And for a lot of us, change has been. So have a look at your month of April so far. Perhaps you've done a lot of good work. Maybe you have really tried to create a new brand for yourself. Maybe you really wanted to get along with more and more people. Maybe you've started up something very, very worthy of your time, or you just pushed on. Uranus is behind the sun. We are done improving and shifting for the long haul. Settle in. We are now starting to settle in and really do the work. The most important thing about this transit for me is giving time to the governing factors of your world. So understanding the use of time, recognizing what you've done so far that has not worked and what does not belong. Also releasing all stories and preconceptions about the world, about your youth, about the past, about time itself, and perhaps about the neurosis between people that sometimes occurs based on status, predictability, control, structure, and these uneconomical ways of keeping the old behind, but to understanding the truth of what the old holds. So taking care, taking a few steps back, looking at the painting of your life, looking at the picture that you've drawn out of you as a being, as a person, and recognizing perhaps a few things that could have gone very well if you just kept on going perhaps, or seeing how a few of these factors are still not belonging because you are trying to go in a direction opposite of who you are. So this is a very, very beautiful time for me and for a few other Scorpios as well, I'm sure, to realize you. If you have a Scorpio anything, if you have Scorpio stelliums, if you have a Scorpio sun, moon, ascendant, earth, if you're a Taurian, please have a look. Having a look at yourself is a very important factor here for all of us anyway. Taking a little bit more time to notice the changes needed perhaps in your life, or the changes gone, being in a more contemplative and a more controlled, perhaps even slightly severe manner is a very, very nice sign of decency and dependability here. We are waited on and we are waiting perhaps for you, and this is a very, very nice personal and very, very strong controlling, maybe perhaps slightly time, but it does take us to the next level. You are your own surgeon. We have Chiron shifted into Aries. We have now perhaps a little bit more, actually maybe much more understanding of the guru within, as this Chiron now is in the 12th collective house to Taurus sun, and we can probably really, really well see and understand what it was that we wanted all along. What was it that we were looking for all along, and how is it now that we are perhaps yet not seeing it, but here it comes, Jupiter conjunct Moon. I'm feeling that most of us will not quite see it, but There is a very interesting phenomena that sometimes happens in all of us, and that's the seer or the observer that is beyond the ego and the mind, that is not the inner child nor the celestial being, the observer. So the silent feeling, the silent witness to your life. Perhaps you are already somebody who constantly does this, or is in a natural way inclined to do this, just to silently and still be and observe. And here you may actually witness a lot of us people also in the way that we are. And if you are already observant of yourself, you may coincidentally observe the whole world and somehow create a lot more discerning and a much brighter view of life. If you were already there, or if you are already very, very well connected to that feeling, that state of the observer. But if you are not, and you are still damaged, or you're damaging your life through tug of war, and you're working too hard and you're trying too many things at once, and you going about your day witnessing your life in a very, very critical or very chaotic way, you might like to, this full moon, perhaps take a while and see. And if it is very difficult to concentrate, because this is a moon of maturity, I feel, if it is very, very difficult to concentrate, it's very, very hard to put yourself into the driver's seat or the automated state of your life and just witness, just allowing change to be seen, just allowing the rocks to turn, just allowing your life to be witnessed. If it is really, really hard, you can start writing things down. You can start writing things down, you can start playing with facts. Perhaps having a look at what you've done in the last week or so could be a good way to start. Perhaps having a look at the process that you have taken on in your job, perhaps your body and mind, also the way that things go, and perhaps there is a process that is still taking place that is not right for you. Maybe you can cut things down, maybe you can lower the costs, maybe you can do things at first on the very dismissive level, non-personal level. Maybe you could look at your work, maybe you can look at your style, maybe, because we're still looking at personality, we're still looking at depiction of self. Maybe you can have a look at what you're wearing, how you're doing, the food you eat and things like this, but then eventuate into you. This is one of the very, very few chances we get this year, I feel, to take the pause button and to make it stop, to make things stop and pause before we really release. It feels to me that a few of us are not stopping, and I've had this momentum building as well. If you are really busy before the coming moon and you do not want to sit well with you, and you do not want to talk to yourself, and you don't want to see, or you are feeling unlikely to have time to really notice, to slow down, to drop in, and to really recognize a few things, that's not going to be that good for you in the future. So if you are not able to create time, to stretch your timeline enough, to have some space alone, have some space free, consider why you're doing, how you're doing, and what for. It's a very, very important time to also witness the processes that you have going on in your life anyway, with Taurus Sun. At the moment, I'm feeling a lot of us are going on and going on without really wanting to change for the better, and we're not really creating a lot of change or shift, but we're still doing. It's a very interesting time of potency, decency, and configuration, reconnection, reevaluation, replacing the fractals that were, perhaps reforming a few different motifs in your life, reconnecting the dots in a way that they have never perhaps ever been. We can hear, perhaps for some of us, go back to previous environments. We can even go back into a previous group or into a previous personal story, but please take care and check this out, okay? Especially ladies, if you were a scorned person, if you were trampled on, if you were despised, or some kind of some kind of story where you were forgotten or displaced, and here you are coming back again. If you were to come back in the next while, if you ever wanted to come back, especially, this is for the men as well, to a partnership or some kind of a situation, please, please, please consider yourself. Are you taking yourself backwards? But if it is really truly with you what has happened, and perhaps if you're really truly understanding that the past was misinterpreted and you were really wanted and you really fit in where you were, yes, you can take it back. For some of us, it is actually really nice to take things back. It's an interesting time to forget the past, but to come back to the previous situation. So not to any longer worry about what happened, what went wrong, or how it did. It is not so good to embellish yourself and disembellish others here at all during this type of moon. It's very good to keep your finger on the pulse and making sure that your nose is not up in the air, you know, that you're not trying to make another person feel less. Because for some people, it may not be a maturity that you're displaying, it might actually be something, it can just be mean. It could just be mean what you do. So it's very important to keep all of this in check, but also to understand that for us, occasionally where we were is not bad. It's just that we sometimes cannot accept it at the time. But to come back to a previous phenomena, to come back to a previous type of work, to a previous situation, for some people to a previous structure, as we've got Capricorn stellium going to retrograde, previous structure, previous perhaps words said a while ago, asserting yourself perhaps in a nice way now, no longer wanting to fight, condescending thoughts should be gone, and criticism should probably be taken with kind hearts. It is a very interesting time to take back what you said, or to hear what someone said to you and to recognize its worth and potency, even if it was kind of mean. So it's a very interesting time to reinterpret, and perhaps for some people it will be misinterpreted. It all depends. It is depending on you and how you take your own security, your own worth, maturity, curiosity and superiority. A feeling of superiority and status, and the feeling of being stated. For some people it is a normal, natural connection to earth, and as long as it is just a normal, earthy feeling, human, gentle and vulnerable connection, most of the time this is basically beautiful. This is what it is. But for many people, their connection to their status, their physicality, their superiority or inferiority comes from lack, not having enough people listen, not having enough people to talk to, not having enough people to understand their views, not being craved enough, or not being put into the right context, they think. So no matter who you are, by now there is a definite context for your work, and there's probably a very, very strong context for who you are. I know it is very hard, and this is like all very cryptic stuff, but for most of us, we've already been placed, and we've already been perhaps rearranged and sometimes even replaced in situations and put into the right people's minds, the right groups, the right context by Jan. So by Jan we had it. In January, if you remember your January, there was already a very nice, sturdy, meaty context for who you are. And if you felt wrong there, and if you tried very hard to change your world, perhaps it did happen, perhaps with some prayer and some laughter, or some reconfiguration you could move. But for now, basically, we are already contextualized as people. We've already been planted to grow. So since Aquarius, we've already been planted, even slightly earlier than that. But here you are now, and you can here start to witness yourself unfurl and grow way, way, way beyond what you have expected. But this has to be done in peace and understanding that you've been placed where you are for a reason, and there is no worries here anymore. So fights should be gone. The fight that we had in Aries during the transit of the Sun through Aries, and we also still got Mercury in Aries actually, that went retrograde for a while. We had a very, very strong push, and the pushiness was surreal. We had to get a little bit crazy. We had to really try and bust ourselves out of our previous confinement. But this is not about truly the confinement of this world. It is more the confinement within. And when we are in Taurus, we are not asked to do any more of that. Even though Taurus can sometimes lose its temper and have a very heavy core, The point of Taurus is not to worship anything, but yet we still try. The most immaculate way to connect into this particular full moon, I feel, is going to start off this month of May, is not to worship anybody else's pretense, because conflict is worship of pretense. Not to connect, not to culturalize yourself, you know, not to proud be for the sake of looking good, you know, or feeling strong in front of other people. Not to generate too much worry and too much abyss for yourself, because Luna in Scorpio can sometimes be the opening to the abyss. It is also not so great to become too wealthy or too proud or too, how can I say, like a pride ridden even. If you are somehow deserving the most, if you're looking around and you're seeing other people are still trying to put themselves together, and you are somehow the person who lurks around and you already have your things where they should be, you feel, or you are already on a very nice platform, a very nice level, and you've built yourself up months and months or years ago, it is not a good idea to search for you within that, because sometimes when we take this consolidating awful and beautiful time, because it is both, as every Scorpio event has got a lamb to the slaughter feeling within it as well, we also kind of forget that this is not a time to keep yourself going into the feeling of pride, because that feeling isn't going to open up and give you more joy. The feeling of pride generates more closure and more captivity, as we are in the opposition of two very fixed sides, and we are looking here at money versus power, or pleasure versus sensuality, and life and death, and also the innocent vibration of the world. So we're in a very, very epic very epic opposition here between Taurus and Scorpio, and it would be, I feel, very, very foolish of us to keep treating ourselves with too much pride or arrogance, because that does not give us much more room to move. So where is your pride? Where is your feeling of inner wealth? What is your feeling of wealth? How do you feel joy? Do you feel above and beyond, or do you feel below? Are you scattering around? What is your identity of wealth and power? And who are you inside beneath all this? And this is one of the most important keys here: vulnerability. Vulnerability. And this is very interesting, because one of the most potent people that I've ever met in my life, one of the most potent, desperate, strongest, you know, densest, also most freeing people I've met in my life was the most vulnerable. Okay, so when we are going into the greatest height, and we are going into the greatest capacity for pleasure, for money, for power, for all those things, we also have to keep in mind that on occasion that has a very interesting side, and this could be seen as a dark or a light side. It depends. It is really up to you, which is very much vulnerability. So with, you know, how people say with great power comes great responsibility. I believe that, I trust that, but it feels to me that with greatest power comes great vulnerability. And that's something that you might also want to do before the moon turns to Scorpio, is to recalibrate your frequency in terms of what is and what is not powerful, and who you are in a state of vulnerability. What does that mean to you? What are all these senses saying about you? What are all these tingling sensations that you have within your being on any animal, instinctual, or human, or even celestial level? What is that feeling sensation? Because on occasion we can get lost with the monetary side of things, with the also dogmatic side of things. We can get really, really misplaced in the mathematics of it all, and then the vulnerable particles, the vulnerable parts of your psyche do not get fed. And ironically, when we are no longer vulnerable, we just become a brick, we just become a sitting duck, or we become a statue that doesn't really have enough. And this is it basically. So knowing how you are on every level of power and control, and also all spectrum of innocence, every spectrum of innocence, which is going to give you a lot more. And also Jupiter is here as well. So what is power of the mind? What is the true freedom in life? You know, it's not a credit card, you know. It's not being able to paint by numbers. It is not being able to have the right result sometimes. It's not. It is not like that. It is just about knowing and feeling that you've got a lot more to learn, or you've got a lot more to understand, you've got a lot more to grow through, you've got a lot more interest and curiosity and a sensitive edge to life, which then brings about more. So the moon is touching on Jupiter, so we should really here be incredible at growing up quickly and growing our introspective, emotional, vulnerable, and very, very kind-hearted. Hopefully, it's really difficult to achieve that entirely in Scorpio and Taurus, but uncanning, at least uncanning, feeling, open, real way, you know, in a real way. So if you can, trust who you are, but don't market yourself to yourself. You know, a lot of people do that. You know, a lot of people can take themselves out of the picture of their world, and they can put themselves into a certain type of perspective, which is just a label or a brand. So marketing yourself to you is no. And also pressing yourself towards others as if you are a finished product or a finished guru or a finished gentleman or a lady. A person who is finished, who is complete, gets to go. It's almost like the lamb is fat for the slaughter. Does it make sense? We are looking, this is difficult to understand, but we are looking at this really strong emergence of the sun through Taurus, which is only the second sign. We're still at the beginning of the year, really. We're only on the second sign out of 12, and then we're looking at this really incredible moon in Scorpio, you know, conjunct Jupiter, and we have this incredible strong and at the same time disembodied retrograde stellium here as well in Capricorn. So we actually have so much meaning and so much worth that a person who's overgrown their status and feel they are too much for the world, you know, whoever feels that they're too strong, too comfortable, too patient, too good, too much this or too much that, may not be in a position that they wanted to be in the future. So anything that is overqualified, anything that is beyond others, anything that is between dimensions, that is so big, you know, that is so good, that is so incredible, that has decided I am the world or I'm the way, these energies are going to fall. And though it might not be perhaps the most amazing situation, it may not be as biblical as you might imagine me, you know, saying this, but it is going to be a discovery perhaps of something else. So for example, if a person is very open to recovery and they can see that they're still not strong and they're still treating themselves perhaps as a work in progress, that would be great. That would be a great way to go up. And maybe to bother someone else and try again and learn more and see more greater things in the world. But if you're somebody who decides I am the way, I'm perfection, or I'm the tip or the pinnacle of the world during this time, it would be very incredible for you to take your mind elsewhere. And one of the best ways to do it during Taurus is to look at your body. So to look at your body is very simple here. You can just do it by checking up your endocrine health. You know, you can check up your blood pressure, you can check out if you've got any parasites in your body, which usually people don't want to know about, and you can also perhaps see what is it about you that's probably not 100%. Nobody is completely God, okay? Nobody's completely 100%. There's always going to be something that you want to work on. There's going to be always something that you need to perfect. So take that to the limit. And don't stall as well, because yeah, people sometimes also stall. So for example, if they're not sure and they are not quite complete within themselves and that they don't quite know which way to take it, so they're not sure if they're going towards the way of practice, or they're going towards the way of money, or they're going towards, you know, the way of self-rejection or self-projection. They're not sure which way they're going, and sometimes during Taurus people can be kind of like sitting ducks and they can't really know. Sometimes it is out of arrogance and pride, and occasionally it is seemingly not. It is seemingly from not knowing what to do, being disempowered, not sure, not being worried perhaps, or being a simple person. But here we really have to move on. So I'm seeing a very interesting conveyor belt type of experience here in Taurus. I'm seeing us moving on fast. So if you want to, please apply yourself, please, please, please. If you want to make change in your world, start applying yourself. Start using your time in a sense religiously or with dignity. So making a really, really nice constance with time. We got Saturn retrograde, we've got Pluto retrograde. We can really learn a few things. We can sorry, the light keeps on going off. Instill a lot of new values. We can trust ourselves perhaps with previous phenomena a lot more. We can probably become a lot greater healers, greater counselors, and greater practitioners. We can probably be greater professionals on all levels out of this. And for those people that are not asking, you know, those people that are never asking, it might be a very nice time to not be afraid to ask for more. So if you are one of those people, one of those rare people that are jeopardizing themselves, and no matter what, they are not asking for more, you're not asking for a raise, and you don't know how to ask, how to physically ask. Okay, say like your employee or, you know, your therapist, you don't know how to ask your partner, especially, you know, or somebody in your life, you know, can you please give me space, or can you please, you know, I need more. If you're one of those people that is actually incredibly shy and doesn't know how to ask for more, perhaps start. So balance this out, have a look. If you truly do definitely feel like you deserve, but you do not want to know that you deserve, if you've got some kind of even under-eating habits, under-eating, under-receiving, under-nourishing yourself on purpose or inappropriately, it's a very interesting time to start and to ask for more. If you have a child with anorexia, if you have a child with bulimia, if you're a person without enough stamina, or if you're somebody who doesn't want to grow and cannot grow, and there's like a lethargy or like a feeling of not having enough self connection, it is a very, very, very strong time to find and search for the power within and try to connect those dots. So if you've got one of those symptoms, or somebody in your family does, or if you are just never ever giving yourself enough and you forget how to live, you forget how to eat, you forget to nourish yourself, you forget to look after yourself, if you self-neglect constantly, it's a very good time to see why. A couple more things. Okay, so worldview. I'm feeling that a lot of us are not quite sure as to our worldview and our connection to this that we are in. It's a very not such a good time to try. I actually feel that we've got incredible awakening of the mind happening by May. So when we go on Gemini, we're going to truly kick in the mind. But at the moment, even though Mercury is out of retrograde and it's feeling a little bit better, it's not going to be totally up to date. I feel that a lot of us have ideas or have certain types of reflections on the world. We might have a certain mind about love or lust or things like that. So in terms of political, philosophical, religious, spiritual understanding that comes from the mind, it's not, you know, just given, it's woven understanding. So putting together the puzzle of your mind, I feel, is not going to be hard later on in Taurus perhaps, and later on when we are again in Gemini. But here is not a great time to do this now. So I feel some of us healers and practitioners, you know, might get a lot of advice from other astrologers and work this out, you know, what's your magic, you know, like what do you know, share your gifts with the world. But it actually feels to me that it might not give you anything with time. I actually have a feeling that this particular Jupiter with Capricorn, how it is to me, to my field, like to my feeling, is not really releasing enough energy to the mind. It is not really connecting to the ancestral lines in that dimensional way to really give a huge push of wisdom. I feel unless you really do not have any attachment, you don't even know what you're talking about, okay? So in terms of creating, like weaving a book, joining a monastery, okay, so becoming some kind of a wizard, you know, becoming a galactic mind, for now it feels to me that till we are in Gemini it's not clear. So if you're thinking about joining a force, if you're feeling you know, that this is a time to become gospel, you know, to take your word to the streets, for some reason I feel that we might not know what we're doing, especially with Aries Mercury, until probably the end of the year, really truly, with other people in the context of us, okay? So yes, what else? Gangsters, going gangster. Sorry, picking things up here. Gangster, okay, this is gonna sound weird. Love you as you. I'm feeling that there's like a lot of radicalism, and there's a lot of like a culture mix happening. There's appropriation, there's a lot of sort of a gangster tribalism coming through, and gangster spirituality and gangster advertising and things like that. So I feel in terms of ganging up on people or ganging up on an idea and getting that vibe, that together vibe, we are not safe here, okay? So we're not safe, and this is not a nana thing to say. I'm just feeling that things are not what they seem. So in terms of getting into tribes now, and especially those that are carrying a big flag for an ambitious cycle or some kind of a big, almost like a reptilian overlord type of energy, you know, it's like trying to be something bigger than big. If there's any kind of circulation of information that is trying to make people get on board, if you're thinking I finally found my tribe, I finally found my guy, you know, and it's like a really crazy story, very, very careful with that. So the prouder, we asked to be proud here, the prouder we are, the less disposable our affairs at the moment in Taurus, the better. So try to chew your food, grandma advice, chew your food, take time, have a practice, some kind of practice in your life, and you don't need to, but also offer another person help if they need it. So thanks a lot, you guys. I hope you had an interesting time chatting to me on the brink of this incredible full moon in Scorpio, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks. Bye.